It is way too early to be doing this sort of video, but I wanted to get an early reading on how the bookies think the Championship is going to shape up next season. For today, we're going to be looking into the bookies promotion odds for how likely they think each side is to be promoted next season. Now, obviously, it goes without saying, each Championship club is going to be incredibly busy between now and the start of the new campaign, and these odds will continue to fluctuate over these next few months as a result of that. But just to get an interesting early reading on how strong or weak each side is deemed to be by the bookies right now, I thought we'd have a look into some of the early odds. So if you did go to enjoy today's video, make sure to drop a like, subscribe if you're new around here. But let's just jump in. So according to the bookies, the two sides who are least likely to be promoted next season in the Championship, we've got both Oxford and Charlton who have been given promotion odds of 25-1. Charlton, obviously, the League One playoff winners after coming through their final against Leyton Orient. You'd probably say that they have maybe the most to do of the three clubs that are coming up from League One, but what they do have is an established Championship manager in Nathan Jones, someone who really knows the level and someone who can be quite adaptable actually, and I think he's quite good at sort of playing the underdog role. Charlton, while they will have to nail things in terms of recruitment this summer, definitely shouldn't be wrote off coming into this Championship campaign. And speaking of being written off, Oxford fans will know exactly how that feels, obviously. They were the side that came up from League One last season via the playoffs, and immediately they were the odds-on favourites to be relegated at the start of the season, but managed to defy the odds in the end. They finished 4 points above the relegation zone. Listen, they're going to have their work cut out for themselves once again in the Championship next season. They're going to have another really strong summer transfer window, but no reason why that can't happen again. And with a good solid group of players, a good Championship boss in Gary Rowett as well, no reason why Oxford couldn't potentially kick on for next season. After that, and in joint 21st, I'll say, on this table, we've got both Portsmouth and Preston who have been given promotion odds of 20-1. Now, speaking from experience as a Preston fan, pretty much for the last 4-5 consecutive years before a ball has been kicked, Preston are always among the relegation favourites. It's just, what we're used to now as North End fans. But it does feel like the way we ended last season, relegation coming into this next Championship season, does feel like a lot more of a real possibility than it has done in recent seasons. Listen, there's going to be a big clear out at Preston this summer that's already begun with quite a few established stars leaving. If we don't get this rebuild spot on this summer in terms of our recruitment, we really could land ourselves in trouble next season. But looking at the bright side of things, I do think we've got a good manager in Paul Heckingbottom. Despite our dismal end to last season, we didn't actually lose that many games throughout the campaign. In 46 league matches last season, Preston lost 16 games, which was less than Coventry lost. It was just the fact that we drew so many matches that we sort of found ourselves in that predicament towards the end of the campaign. So Preston, how we do next season, I think is massively influenced by our recruitment, as is probably the case with a few clubs here. Portsmouth, promotion odds of 20-1. I'm surprised they're this low down, to be honest with you. If they can manage to crack the code next season in terms of improving their away form, then I think they've got a really good chance of kicking up the league. Fratton Park, one of the toughest places to go to in the Championship. They've got a good young manager there, a good core of players as well. But the bookies thinks that they may be down there, potentially in a bit of a relegation scrap again this season. Coming in 20th, the bookies have QPR with promotion odds of 17-1. A lot of unknowns at QPR right now. Obviously, they're going to be getting a new manager going into next season, but as of recording, I don't think they've officially dismissed Marty Cifuentes. From, last reading about their situation, I believe he's still on gardening leave, believe it or not. Looks like Johannes Hofthorp could be the next man going in there at QPR. Yeah, Cifuentes leaving there in less than ideal circumstances. That could have a bit of a ripple effect with them going into next season for sure. Next up, in joint 18th, the bookies have Derby and Sheffield Wednesday, each with promotion odds of 12-1 coming into this new campaign. With Derby, I think there is a sense of optimism within that fan base, obviously. Surviving on the final day, John Eustace now got his feet fully under the table there, and he's got history for kicking up the league in his second season, and I definitely think that's possible for Derby if they nail their recruitment. For Derby, it's going to be key this summer to improve their attacking options. They're going to need more firepower next season. I mean, absolutely no doubt about that. But if they do manage to land a few of their top targets, especially in the final third, no reason why they couldn't kick up the table. Sheffield Wednesday, they are being predicted to have a bit of a regression, certainly going off their early odds for next season. Still a lot of uncertainty surrounding Danny Roll. Is he going to stay? Is he going to go? Realistically, Sheffield Wednesday just need an answer to that as soon as possible, because the longer any sort of managerial speculation lingers on for, that's going to affect their preparation going into next season. And I mean, I can certainly speak as a Preston fan. When we had Ryan Lowe leaving after one game of last season, that massively had a knock-on effect to the rest of our campaign. So Sheffield Wednesday definitely could be derailed by a little bit of that. Next up, and in joint 16th by the bookies, we've got both Blackburn Rovers and Hull City, each with promotion odds of 10-1. Blackburn are fancied to have a bit of a regression here by the bookies. Obviously, it'll be Valérien Ismaël in his first full season in charge of Rovers after coming in towards the tail end of the last campaign. Bit of a mixed bag overall, I think it's fair to say, for Ismaël and the sort of situation he inherited at Blackburn. Took him a little bit of time to get things going. They did have a chance of getting into the top 6 on the final day, but just couldn't get the job done away at Sheffield United. Recruitment there is going to be very important over the summer, and what their realistic ambitions are probably going to be determined by that. Likewise for Hull, they are such a curveball coming into next season. As of recording, we don't know who their manager is going to be next season either. Things could very much go one way or the other for Hull. Obviously, in the last 2 seasons with Hull, we've seen them go agonisingly close to a top 6 finish and agonisingly close to relegation. Where do they fall next season? It's anyone's guess, to be honest with you. After that, and in joint 14th, we've got Stoke and Watford, each with promotion odds of 9-1 coming into next season. Watford, a little bit of a wild card, I think it's fair to say. There was a bit of cause for concern for Watford in the second half of last season, just for the fact that they accumulated fewer points than any other Championship side in the second half of last season. And if that negative momentum does carry on into next season, yeah, they could find themselves maybe in a little bit of trouble. But obviously, they made the bold decision at the end of the campaign to part ways with Tom Cleverley. Paulo Pezzolano has been appointed as his replacement, a new face to the Championship. This will now be Watford's 4th season back in the Championship, so we'll no longer have any parachute payments. That could certainly have a bit of an influence on their summer recruitment this time around. Stoke also in there with promotion odds of 9-1. We've definitely got used to seeing Stoke being a bit overestimated in these bookies predictions at the start of the season in previous years gone by. This, compared to where the bookies have tended to have Stoke in recent years, seems to be a bit more of a conservative prediction, really. They were solid enough under Mark Robins in the second half of last season without ever really being outstanding. Problem that Stoke have got in the Championship right now is that for the past 4 consecutive seasons, they have been trending downwards. So from 2021/22, they finished lower in the following season in each consecutive year. And with the Championship looking really competitive at the bottom of the table coming into next season, that's definitely something that could catch Stoke out if that trend towards the bottom continues. After that, and in joint 12th, we've got Millwall and Swansea, each with promotion odds of 8-1. And I do think there is a sense of optimism maybe for both these clubs coming into next season. Millwall obviously gave a really good stab at making it into the top 6 under Alex Neil in the second half of the campaign, just fell short in the end. What they're definitely going to have to address coming into next season is perhaps a lack of firepower, lack of creativity at times. A lot of their wins were quite marginal, and often when they were the side maybe to fall behind in the match, they didn't always have that firepower to get back in and overturn that sort of result. You know, last season in the Championship, Millwall scored just 47 goals, so surprisingly were one of the lowest scoring sides in the league, but just because of how amazing that defensive record was for the majority of this season, it kept them within playoff contention. If they can just tip the scales ever so slightly in the attacking third, maybe that could be enough to get Millwall over the line and into the top 6. For Swansea, really good finish to last season after what was a quite inconsistent and turgid first sort of 3/4 of the campaign maybe. Alan Sheehan's now got the Swansea job on a permanent basis. We'll have to wait and see if long term that is the right decision or not, but they certainly ended last season with a lot of momentum, Swansea, didn't they? Predicted to fall off and finish in 11th next season, back in their spiritual home you could say. The bookies have Bristol City, promotion odds of 13-2. Now, as of recording, Liam Manning hasn't officially left, but it is looking increasingly likely that he will be leaving Bristol City and joining Norwich. How much of a knock-on effect could that have with the Robins coming into next season? It could be absolutely massive. Bristol City for the last few consecutive seasons have constantly been improving on their league position season upon season. The question going into next season is, have they hit that ceiling? Was last season as good as it's going to get for Bristol City and finishing 6th? And are we going to see a bit of a regression after that if, let's say, Liam Manning leaves and a few others follow him out the door? It's too early to say, really, but the bookies currently have them down with promotion odds of 13-2. Could be a big summer at Ashton Gate, indeed. Now, speaking of Norwich City, they're actually one place above Bristol City in this league table. They're joint with Wrexham with promotion odds of 6-1. Norwich fans, I'd be interested to get your take on Liam Manning and if it is indeed going to be him coming in at Carrow Road next season. Norwich, one of the most free-scoring sides in the Championship last time around, but at the opposite end of the pitch, they were just absolutely helpless, weren't they? Pretty much the exact opposite of what Millwall were. They could score goals for fun, but they were flying in at the opposite end of the pitch. There's no doubt for me last season was a massive underachievement from Norwich, considering the resources, the players they had. They shouldn't have finished in the bottom half. They're going to need to get themselves back into playoff contention next season. It feels like that's going to be the aim for them. And tied with Wrexham with promotion odds of 6-1. Now, it does feel like these promotion odds will be based on what the bookies think will happen this summer. Wrexham are probably going to throw quite a bit of money at it this summer. You know, you certainly wouldn't say that Wrexham coming up to the Championship with the squad they've currently got, that's definitely not going to be good enough for a top half finish next season, is it? But with the pull in the transfer market that Wrexham clearly have at the moment, if they can attract those high quality, high calibre players, there's no reason why they couldn't potentially kick on next season in the second tier either. Predicted to finish in 8th place by the bookies, we've got West Brom with promotion odds of 5-1, so just predicted to miss out on the top 6 like they have done in this season just gone by. Still quite a few unknowns with the Baggies coming into this new season. It's tough to make a definitive prediction on them right now, especially since we don't know who's going to be in charge there next season. Hopefully we'll get a bit more clarity on that in these next few days and certainly weeks, so West Brom can start to properly plan for next season. And based on these early odds, Leicester don't even make it into the top 6. They've got promotion odds of 4-1 right now, so would be predicted to fall short of the top 6 and finish in 7th. Now, with Leicester, there are a lot of unknowns coming into next season. First of all, who's their manager going to be? There's been a lot of speculation that it's going to be Russell Martin. We'll still have to wait and see on that. The biggest challenge facing the Foxes next season is what punishment are they hit by the EFL. They have been charged now for an alleged breach in the 2023-24 season when they were promoted to the Premier League. The latest on that story is they've now been referred to an independent commission, and we'll have to wait and see what potential punishment they're hit with. Point deduction could be coming, a potential transfer embargo. There's just a lot of different scenarios that could unfold with the Foxes, obviously. Generally speaking, a club coming down from the Premier League with year one parachute money, they're automatically one of the favourites for promotion next season. With Leicester at the moment, that's not quite the case because of these off-the-field issues. But predicted to make it into the top 6, we've got both Coventry and Middlesbrough, each with promotion odds of 10-3 right now. First of all, we'll speak about Middlesbrough. Last season was definitely an underachievement by Michael Carrick's men. They were one of the most fancied sides for promotion last season as well. They didn't manage to get over the line and into the top 6 though, despite what was quite a low threshold for entry in terms of the amount of points needed to finish 6th, and Middlesbrough couldn't even get to that tally. They were so inconsistent in those final few weeks of the season that time and time again it felt like they had their own destiny in their own hands and they kept on throwing things away. Right now it looks like they're sticking with Carrick going into next season despite the underperformance last time around, but still quite a bit could happen at Borough between now and the start of this new campaign. With Coventry, I think it's understandable why they would be among the promotion favourites again. From the moment that Lampard came in last season, they did look like a top 6 outfit, and despite things not quite falling for them in the playoff semi-finals against Sunderland, everything about that club at the moment feels like it's built for competing at the top end of the Championship. Now, Frank Lampard still has maybe a few critics to answer. Generally speaking, throughout his managerial career, it's always tended to be the second season at a club where things have started to unravel for him a little bit. But with the base he's got at Coventry at the moment, I think most would have them as a top 6 challenger again. Predicted to finish all the way up in 4th place by the bookies right now. We've then got Birmingham with promotion odds of 11-4. It does feel like after a few of the bookies Bookies last time maybe were caught out by Ipswich in their back-to-back promotions from League One and then into the Championship as well. There is a similar feeling of momentum that's surrounding Birmingham right now and this exciting project. Obviously, it's been well documented the sort of money that they spent last season in League One to get out of the third tier. If they apply that same sort of business model and approach to this season in the Championship, then there's no reason why they can't really go ahead and push on once again. They're coming up from League One as the best team the third tier has ever seen in terms of the amount of points they accumulated. The underlying numbers for Birmingham in League One last season were absolutely exceptional as well. And the vast majority of their squad that they've got to work with, even before they add any more players to that, which I'm sure they will, is already a really competitive squad for the Championship. In terms of market value already, I think Birmingham have about the 16th most valuable squad in the Championship, and they're going to add a hell of a lot to that between now and the start of the season, so you can see why quite a lot of people are hot on Birmingham at the moment. Predicted to finish in third place for a second consecutive season, it's Sheffield United with promotion odds of 23 to 10. I mean, Sheffield United will want to throw everything at automatic promotion for this upcoming campaign. I mean, no doubts about that. Blades fans won't want to go through playoff heartache again. A potential light at the end of the tunnel for Sheffield United fans to look at is Leeds United, who we obviously saw losing at Wembley against Southampton. They used that momentum for the following season and went on and won the Championship. I mean, no doubts that Sheffield United will be amongst the promotion challengers once again going into next season. You know, they've still got year 2 parachute money that's going to be coming in. I'm sure there's going to be quite a few sales there. I'd be surprised if Hamer, Souza, wouldn't be surprised if Cooper's maybe poached as well, maybe a few others, but as we saw even with Leeds last time around when they lost Crescencio Somerville, Jorginho Rutter and Archie Gray after the playoff final, they still had a really good core group of players that they added to. Chris Wilder knows that club like the back of his hand. Despite the heartache that I'm sure Blades fans are still feeling from that playoff final, yeah, I'd still have them down as one of the promotion favourites for sure. The bookies have Southampton as the second favourites for promotion. Promotion odds of 7 to 4 right now, despite coming down from the Premier League as the second worst side the Premier League has ever seen, you know, only accumulating 12 points all season. They are going into the Championship next season as one of the favourites to bounce back. It feels like the Saints have been quite proactive in hiring Will Still as early as they have done. Obviously, you got to watch that final game of Southampton's Premier League season in preparation for next season in the second tier. And listen, there is going to be a lot of turnover within that Southampton squad. They've got quite a few out-of-contract players, saleable assets, which will move on this summer. I mean, no doubt about that. But financially, they'll be one of the biggest clubs in the Championship next season. Generally speaking, you'd fancy them to be able to attract top caliber players for the level as well, and with a highly rated manager like Will Still, you could see why they're quite hot in the bookies' estimations right now. But at this very early stage, it is Ipswich Town who are being backed as the favourites for promotion by the bookies. Once again, like we were saying for Southampton, there is probably going to be quite a bit of turnover within that Ipswich squad in terms of, you know, player sales. Delap, for example, is definitely going to go. A few others as well that will be moved on when bids inevitably come in from a few Premier League sides. But generally speaking, Ipswich have got a core group of players that are definitely good enough to be cutting it in and around the top end of the Championship next season. They've also got stability in the dugout as well. There's never really been any sort of conversations about, you know, dismissing Kieran McKenna, even when it was clear that Ipswich weren't going to survive in the Premier League. It's a long-term project for the Tractor Boys. They're going to bank that Premier League money now, come back down to the Championship with those parachute payments, and you can see, looking at the resources they're going to have next season, even some of the players who are likely to stay for the Championship does put them in a really good stead compared to some of those other promotion challenges that they're going to be up against at the top half of the table next season. But there you have it, guys. That will now wrap it up for today's video. Thank you very much for tuning in. Do get your early thoughts on this upcoming Championship season in the comments down below. But other than that, thank you very much for tuning in, and I'll see you all in the next one.